welcome to You Against You podcast, and I'm your host, Deja Nicole. So today's episode is actually a thank you to my listeners and a 1-year anniversary episode of You Against You podcast. So I'm actually recording the day before I'm going to post this, and if I was wondering, when is the 1-year anniversary of You Against You podcast? It's November 7th, and I'm going to explain my whole journey on why I decided to start a podcast. Was it really last minute or was it planned? Because I feel like it's both last minute. Sorry, but it was both last minute and both planned at the same time. So I'm going to explain everything, my whole journey, how I felt, and some other things like what next season is going to be about, when I'm going to start next season, some things that I want to do for the podcast and growing the podcast community than just posting on Instagram and making podcast episodes. So stay tuned for that. But before we get into today's episode, let's do a weekly update. If y'all know, I have recently did weekly updates a few episodes ago, and I just want y'all to get a feel on how my week is going so far, even though like sometimes I will record the episode the beginning of the week, so I can't really tell y'all, but it's whatever, but let's just do a weekly update. So a mental health checkup. How am I doing mentally? So not gonna lie, I'm doing good, but kind of sad, which I'm going to explain in today's episode on why. But I'm doing good. I'm doing well in all of my classes. College can be stressful, but I'm doing well in all of my classes. As you can see if you're watching, I don't have braids no more. I'm wearing my natural puff. I decided to wash my hair and wear my hair natural for the colder weather. So yeah, if you was watching this, but if you're not, I have a puff ball going on. But I'm doing good mentally. I'm starting therapy soon and I'm happy. Of course, I'm doing what makes me happy, and I think I'm gaining happy weight, not gonna lie. So I'm happy. So plus the gym has been a help, but I'm doing good. I'm doing very good, guys, and I'm just hopefully these 2 last months of 2023 before entering 2024, which actually no, because there will be 2 episodes this week. This one that's coming out tomorrow, and then the other one I'm recording on Wednesday that's coming out Friday. So that's going to be getting ready for 2024, and that will also be a lot of things for next year in the challenge. Have one next year, but just getting my mental health straight and being happy, especially for these last couple of months, this month and next month. But I'm doing good. I'm doing well. How are you doing mentally? So you should ask yourself that, answer that question while you're listening to this portion or just this whole episode, is how are you doing mentally, and write it down. Just write it down. I am mentally feeling this right now, or in the morning I was feeling like this mentally, but right now I'm feeling like this. So ask yourself right now, how are you feeling mentally? Now, of course, follow the You Against You podcast Instagram, which is You Against You by Deja. And that's the same as for the TikTok, so You Against You by Deja, and those 2 links will be in the show notes down below, so you can go follow. And also you can go follow me personally on Instagram, which is, I don't know what I just said, but which is Deja, DAJAH _Nicole, NICOLE _ so go follow your girl. So yeah, that will also be in the show notes down below as well. Now also you can go subscribe to, of course, the You Against You podcast YouTube channel if you are listening to this on Apple or Spotify. The link to the YouTube channel will be in the show notes. But if you're watching this on YouTube, just hit the subscribe button. Go subscribe to my main YouTube channel, Deja Nicole. That link will also be in the description / show notes wherever you are watching. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave a rating and review. And if you are listening to this on Spotify, don't forget to leave a rating. Those help and also get people to know and listen to the podcast if they're new to the podcast. So your ratings and reviews help bring more listeners. So yeah. Now, also, especially the dry season, cold season actually, is coming upon us, meaning dry lips. Dry lips. So if you don't want dry lips during this cold season, not dry season, not summer, but if you don't want dry lips for this cold season, the fall and the winter, you should go check out yours truly, my business, that Etsy shop. A link will be in the show notes as well, so you can go check it out. I have 5 amazing lip glosses. I am working on products to launch next year at some point, and I might come out with some lashes, so stay tuned for that. And also I am also coming out for merch next year for the second anniversary of You Against Your podcast, so that is coming out next year, the merch. So I'm so happy of things just happening in my life, you know, as a single black woman, but still good things are happening, and one day a man will come in my life. Now, let's just get into today's episode. So, first of all, I want to thank everyone who support me with this podcast journey. I never thought that I will have a podcast, to be honest, and I never thought it will grow, especially the numbers of listens and the followers that I have. I never thought it could be what I want to be. And this is still the beginning, guys. Don't let the numbers fool you. Don't let the numbers discourage you. You're still in the beginning of something that's going to happen big to you one day. So I really want to say thank you. Just thank you for supporting me. Thank you for listening to my podcast episode. Just for real, thank you so much. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you guys, if it wasn't for you besties. And we're still on a long journey, but y'all not gonna go through it by yourself, and I'm definitely not gonna go through it by myself. We're gonna go through it together. So I just want to say thank you. Now, I really never thought that I would start a podcast, which we're going to talk about it in a few minutes. So I never thought it would last a year. Okay, I never thought I would be doing this within a year. And the reason why I say that, because I have imposter syndrome. A lot of people have imposter syndrome. So that is so big in me that I never thought that I would be doing something and it actually bring a positive impact to someone's life. So I never really thought that, hey, you're gonna do this for a year, Deja. No, I thought it was gonna be probably after episode 10 of season 1. I'm done doing this. I'm done doing this, especially how I got a lot of other things as well. So with YouTube, with school, that's very stressful. School by itself is stressful. And I never thought I was going to continue, because I thought it was going to be I'm going to do this for a couple of months, probably do a couple of episodes, no one really going to listen to this, and I'm done. I'm going to quit it, whatever, all that. But no, we are in season 2, about to finish season 2 before the year ends, and some point next year in January, we will start season 3, which I will talk about what season 3 will be about in today's episode. But I never thought that, Deja, me. Like, yes, I'm talking to myself in the third person, but I never thought, like, Deja, you're gonna do this. You are going to sit with the microphone in your hand, and because I did move this on YouTube, I'm gonna be having a mic in my hand and talking to a camera. Yeah, like, I'm used to talking to a camera, but doing audio editing plus video editing, first it was just audio editing. Like, shoot, that's kind of like not even the same with video editing. And I never thought that, like, I had to like use play with like two different editing softwares to know what I like. So when I got my MacBook for just content purposes, now I use it for both content and school purposes, I download GarageBand because I used to use this software called Audacity, but you can't really do a lot on that. So when I saw someone else who have a podcast and they use GarageBand, and a lot of people recommend GarageBand, that's when I was like, yeah, GarageBand is my favorite tool to use to edit my podcast episode. But I never thought that I would be editing and recording just my voice. When I first started this podcast episode, it was just my voice. And a lot of people, compliment my voice, so it was never a problem that people were just hearing my voice. But I was like, let me like move it to like video as well, because someone say if you want your podcast to grow, sometimes you gotta have video audios, visuals, not audios, but video visuals, and post it. And that's how I decided, like, yeah, next season, so this season right now, season 2, we're gonna we're gonna put it on YouTube, have it on 4 platforms, because I also have this on iHeartRadio. I just don't really mention that because most of my listeners come from either YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. So like, I never thought that I can use my voice, just my voice, when I first started, to make an impact to some people. Now, let's get on to why I started You Against You podcast. Why did I think of the name You Against You podcast? Even though I have a whole episode on that, I'm going to like put it like in this episode as well, but there's a reason why I named it. So I still have my notes because I don't want to just like ramble and stuff. So yeah, even though it's a thank you episode, I still want to have things organized and what I'm going to say in an episode. Now, why did I start a podcast? So, for one, I used to love listening to podcasts in high school, around junior year of high school to be exact. When I first started listening to podcasts, I started listening to the Rob Dial Mindset Mentor podcast so much. I really loved it. But I think after high school, I started to move away from just listening to like self-help, self-improvement podcasts to fun podcasts, lifestyle-based podcasts, and podcasts by women. So that was something that I always loved listening to. Like, I was like, I love listening to podcasts. And I also, when I was in high school, I also looked up, like, how do you start a podcast? Does it really require a lot of equipment? Or can you just use your phone? Like, you can use your phone to start a YouTube channel, but can you use your phone to start a podcast? And how can you distribute it? How can you let people know to, like, listen to it and whatever? So, I always listened to them, so that made my interest peaked. Like, yeah, start one day, because you love listening to them. I also have a voice for someone who's an introvert. I feel like a lot of time, mostly with people who are introverts than extroverts, or both, I forgot what it's called, but mostly people who are introverts, they usually have a voice, but they never really use it. And because I'm an introvert, until you get to know me, I never really used my voice on a lot of things. I never really talked about it because I was always in the background. I was always in the shadow. I was always letting someone speak up for me, but when in reality, it should be me speaking up for myself. And that is something that I have learned and still learning as an adult, to speak up for myself and to let people how the fuck I feel. Because I have a voice. Everyone has a voice. But I feel like with introverts, it is hard to express how we feel. It is hard to use our voice because a lot of people don't like to take introverts seriously. Plus, I'm a Cancer, and a lot of people see me as like soft, and it's like, yeah, she's just going to talk nonsense. But in reality, I got some true shit to say. But it's just, are you willing to actually fucking shut the fuck up and listen what I got to say? Because I have a voice, it's just, I never really use my voice because I'm used of other people talking for me, especially when I don't really like that. And I know I have a voice for people to actually hear. Now, like I said, I love listening to podcasts. That's what I first mentioned. Now, another thing about my voice is that I get a lot of compliments about my voice. I get a lot of compliments from both men and women. With the men, it's a mix of, it's appropriate to say to a woman about her voice, but it's also a mix of, it's very inappropriate to say about the woman of her voice, the voice of her, how to, whatever, but it's very inappropriate when a guy compliments my voice sometimes, which is a whole nother story. But I really do get a lot of compliments on my voice, especially when I am I am part of a lot of group chats of content creators. So if I want to type something long, or just in general, when I feel like typing something long through text, but I don't feel like typing, so I want to send something long, I usually send a voice note. Sometimes I do type like long stuff in text messages, but mostly I will send it through a voice note, especially with group chats with, it's mostly women, and I get compliments about my voice, like, oh my gosh. So like, if it's like my Instagram, it'd be like Deja underscore Nicole underscore, they would tag me, and they'd be like, you should do voiceovers, you should be like, play a Disney princess, because your voice reminds me of a Disney princess. You should do a podcast. So when someone told me I should do a podcast, this was like this summer that just passed, I was like, I do. And it was like, I would love to listen to it. But I get so much compliments, especially from women, about my voice, and it's so soothing. Like, people's like, I would love to hear your voice all day. Like, your voice is just very, very, very angelic. It is so soft. I just love it. And that's why I decided to, like, continue to do this, because people like listening to my voice. But like I said, I also have a voice where people should hear it, not to like trying to be mean, but no, for real, people should hear it, because like I said, I'm an introvert. So being an introvert, we are always in the background, we're always in someone's shadow, when it should be our spotlight, but it's someone else's spotlight. Now, I don't know how long this episode will be, besties, but I don't want to make it too long, but I don't want to make it too short. But now, let's talk about my journey. The journey of You Against You podcast. And the things that I learned. So, like I said, I started this podcast last year on November 7th of 2022. I always wanted to start a podcast. Was this a last minute thing, or was it, it was planned? To be honest, it was both. Now, I announced on my Instagram that I was going to start a podcast back in September of last year, and that gave me at least almost a month and some days to think of a name, to find a picture for the cover art, to find where exactly I want to distribute it, to know at least my top 10 episodes on what I want to have on this podcast. So I thought of You Against You, the title of the podcast, is because I made up this quote saying it will always be you against you, because at the end of the day it will, And someone was like, I remember in the comments of that post when they posted, like, and my Instagram post, I think that was like last year or 2 summers ago. No, it was like, you should always want to change for you. Something like that. That was the quote, actually. And someone's like, you should like use that as like a, put that on a t-shirt or something. And I kind of changed the quote of, it's going to be you against you. So I kind of like made that my thing, you know, saying that to people. And I say that to people, like, if you want to give up, just know it's you against you. Not you against the world. Don't care what people say, don't care what they want for you to do in your life, just do what you want to do in your life. So I thought of the name You Against You. I had to see if it was a name, a title. I haven't heard it, and that's when I added You Against You podcast at the end. But that's what I did. I saw that the name wasn't really available. Like, it was not available, but it was available, and I used You Against You podcast. So that's how I kind of like thought of the name, because it will always be you against you, you know, no matter what in this world that we live in, no matter how terrible it is, it will be you against you. Now, like I said, I had to think of 10 episodes, and this was within the month of late September, early October of last year. It is hard to think of episodes. It was nerve-wracking. That is how I felt, because I was about to push the date 2 weeks around like Thanksgiving to post my first episode. I kid y'all not. And I was like, what the hell? No one's gonna listen to this. I don't even have 5 episodes down on a sheet of paper. Only had two. I didn't know what I want the podcast to be about. So I was like, I'm a content creator. So let's talk about some episodes about being a content creator. I like mental health. I like this. I like that. So let's like put that as some episode topics, you know, here and there. I didn't know exactly what I wanted my podcast to be about, to be honest, which was something that I'm so glad that I figure out now that I want my podcast to be wellness and lifestyle. So yes, I will say content creation, like doing some episodes about that. It's lifestyle based, but at first I didn't know exactly what to talk about. And like I said, it was nerve-wracking, it was stressful, especially I was not done with my fall classes at the time. So I was in the middle of doing fall classes, so I had to think of episodes here and episodes there for just season 1. I didn't know if I wanted to do a season 2. Me doing a season 2 was when I was like probably on episode 25 of season 1 that decided like me doing a season 2. And to be honest, I didn't know what the heck to talk about in season 2, and that's when I decided to have topics from now on for just a certain season and have episodes being that, like, what the topic is about. So like season 2 is all about healing girl era, but also I want to do a lot of things that you're gonna do with healing girl era. Like the next episode, which is actually episode number 18, like I said, this is a bonus episode, is all about getting your shit together before the new year, but it's still going to title like and like tie in healing girl era, because we're gonna talk about a lot of stuff that you should let go before entering 2024, you know? But I never thought that I would do season 2. I never thought that I would actually get ratings or reviews, to be honest. And I have gotten positive reviews, thank God, but I never know what next year will bring me or what next season will bring me, but we just have to wait and see. Now, like I said, I never thought people would support me, but my followers support me. That's all that matters, is that someone is going to support you, and it doesn't have to be someone who's close to you to support you, because at the end of the day, when you start going off and getting brand deals and stuff, that's when the people who are most close to you are going to support you in reality, and that is the sad truth. But I really never thought my followers either would support me on this journey of You Against You podcast, to be honest with you guys, which, it's very sad to say, but at the same time, I'm glad that I have a community, even though it's small. Talking about community, I do have a Geneva group chat, by the way, but I never thought that, hey, like, someone's gonna support me. Someone's gonna, like, listen to me just talking to mic and talk about a certain topic on what that episode is about. Like, I never thought that in reality. And like I said, it's all imposter syndrome. That is just all imposter syndrome, which everyone has. They don't like to mention it, but everyone has some type of amount of imposter syndrome in them, because we're human. We're never perfect. But I really thought that no one would support me. So yeah. And sometimes I do get DMs saying, I like your episode. And especially I did an episode last season about self-sabotage. And one of my reviews saying, I can actually tell y'all right now, one of the reviews said, I'm looking for, like, your girl. I listen to, like, some of my podcasts, like, if you didn't know, but, like, I'm looking for it, but I get, like, refreshing, These are, like, I'm gonna tell you, like, two reviews. So, like, refreshing. She said, I enjoy listening to this podcast because it is a place to learn, and not only that, but really takes time to self-reflect one's life. Thank you for sharing and encouraging. So, like, saying that you can do a self-reflection while listening to my podcast, it's, like, very, 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 it makes me happy. It gets me like I'm doing something. It gets me like deja. Stop worrying. Like, it's not nerve-wracking. Yes, it's nerve-wracking, but you're doing the damn thing. Like, I tell myself, you're doing the damn thing, But it makes me very happy. It makes me very loved in a way that it can make one of my listeners to reflect on their life, on their choices they probably made, and on how they are, because we're not perfect. You should always want to do a self-reflection on how you were yesterday or how you were in an hour, like, an hour ago, So I'm just so happy that this person knows, like, yeah, I'm learning a lot about myself. So they learn about themselves while listening to my podcast. Now, another review said, motivational, such useful and inspiring life tips. So thank you. And these are like months ago, so yeah. And now this one is from a new subscriber back in March, saying, girl, your episode on self-sabotage really hit home for me. I'm so glad that I found your podcast and can't wait to continue listening. So like I said, like, the fact that a lot of people can relate to my episodes, it brings me tears of joy. And I'm just so happy that I have people listening to this, because like I said, I never thought people would listening to this. But I'm going to continue with, my journey a bit, and we're going to continue talking about that. My camera's about to stop, so that's why I'm saying. But I'm just so happy that y'all can relate to each episode that I have on You Against You podcast. So yeah. Ba 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 ba. Okay, besties. Now another thing that I have like learned in my journey is learning to celebrate my small wins. So when I started my YouTube channel as well, that also made me learn, like, Deja, celebrate your small wins, because that's how you're gonna get to your big wins. Like, it really made me realize that your small wins help you get to your big wins, no matter how small they are. And that's what I also learned by just doing this podcast. Like, the number of listeners that I get overall, and I'm sorry if you can hear my stomach, I'm hungry, but the amount of listens that I get overall, the amount of support that I get, it's just a small win that is going to probably become more than a small win in the next maybe year or 2 years, or even 3 years. Like I said, I have been doing this podcast for a year now, and I'm still in the beginning process of just this podcast. Like, I'm still in the beginning process of my YouTube channel. And sometimes you have to do that. You have to celebrate your small wins, no matter how small it is. And I feel like a lot of people don't do that. They only look at the big picture. But I have a whole episode on like goal setting, and that's when I talked about like breaking down your goals so you can get to your sub goals, which is your small wins on you achieving something to get closer to your goals. So me celebrating my small wins on the amount of people listening every month and just seeing that increase, it really put a smile on my face, and it makes me realize that I'm doing something. I'm inspiring people. I never thought I was, I never really thought I would inspire people, to be honest. Like I said, as an introvert, I really never thought I can inspire someone, I never thought I can have someone relate to something. And that is something I have to realize. Like, even as an introvert, you can do big things in life. It's just you getting out your comfort zone and you pushing yourself. Then with an extrovert who is very comfortable in the crowd, they can do whatever they want and they can inspire people because they like doing that. But for someone who likes being in the shadows, or someone who likes being behind the curtains, someone who likes being in someone's shadow and letting them have the spotlight, when in fact that you deserve the spotlight, it's just something that I'm learning. There's something that I'm so happy that I'm doing this. And I celebrate my small wins. That is something that I do. I celebrate every small win. Like, when I saw that my grade went up in one of my classes, and I never thought that I was trying hard, but in fact I was, I celebrate that. I was like, I'm passing with a C, because I was failing philosophy. Philosophy, medical ethics is very hard. And I'm sick and tired of the discussions, but your girl gotta do what a girl gotta do to pass it. So when I checked my grades, like some point last week, and I saw that I got C, because it was an F and then a D, and I didn't like the D, so I was like, I want a high C or a low B. And I saw that I have a high C, I got happy. I was so proud of myself. I don't know what's going to be in a few minutes or in a couple of days, because she got to grade the test and stuff, but as of like right now, I'm passing. Plus, I passed like part 1 of the test, so she only had to like grade part 2, and it's just like, it's still a win. A win is a win, so celebrate your small wins. But just doing this podcast really made me realize to celebrate every small win that I have. And I think if you don't celebrate your small wins, how the hell are you going to get to your big wins? So start celebrating them now. Now, like I said, I think I mentioned this, but also another thing that I kind of did not like in this journey, my whole journey of You Against You podcast, was, like I said, thinking of the episodes is hard, okay? It's like if you're a YouTuber and you try to think of video ideas, it's hard as well. So thinking of episode topics, it's hard, okay? And that's when I was like, I want to finish season 2, but I don't know what exactly episodes I need to have when finishing out season 2 of You Against You podcast. So, friendly reminder, if you can't think of episode ideas or any content ideas, use AI to like really use AI to like help you, because that's what I did to think of like episode ideas. Like yeah, my last episode, my latest episode about like body image and everything was generated by AI, just the topic, just the title, and I just created ideas based on that title that was generated with AI. So thinking of episode ideas can be very discouraged, to be honest, because it's like if I don't have an episode and I don't have nothing to talk about, I'm not going to continue this podcast. And to be honest, it was like that. And that's what I'm like saying, like, if you want to start a podcast, have a topic and have 10 episodes based on that topic, just your first 10. And I told someone that, someone who I support and who I have helped, she is a new podcaster. She started like a few weeks ago. And she was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what equipment to like start with. I was like, you can just start with your phone. But if you want to get that good audio, get you a dynamic mic, but also have a topic for your season and have 10 episodes. It's going to be hard, but have your first 10 episodes, because that's all you need is 10 episodes. There's some people who have seasons for each podcast, but each season has 10 to 12 episodes. Some seasons have less than that. Some seasons have more than that. So just think of a topic, have episodes that go with that topic, or think of multiple topics, have episodes to go with that topic, and go. Press record and go, because you don't really need a mic, okay? And I'm gonna talk about that in a few minutes on what I start with and everything, but you don't really need a mic. And this mic wasn't really expensive. I'll probably, if I can find it on Amazon, I'll put it in the like show notes if you want to start a podcast. But yeah, it's hard to think of episodes ideas, and that's what kind of made me want to quit. Probably after episode 10, maybe episode 11, because of thinking of more episodes. But I'm going to talk about why I didn't quit and why I decided to do something in season 1, then waiting to have it in season 2 or season 3, just in later seasons. So stay tuned for that. Now, if y'all don't know, season 2 is on video, and the other seasons will be on video too, and it was kind of hard switching from being only audio then having both audio and visual. Now, it's not that hard now, because I have some situations sometime when, yes, when the camera stops, you have to pause on your computer and then press record on your camera and then press record on your computer. But sometimes you can forget to press record on your computer, and I have had this situation, and I'm so happy that I, started doing video as well. And also a big video editor, I would say, who works like with big influencers. He had like a story. It's like, if you need help improving on something, no matter if it's a YouTube video, podcast, whatever, DM me and I can help you. So I DM'd him. I took that chance and I DM'd him. He DM'd me back and he was like, what you need if you want to grow your podcast, have video, like have clips of episodes and post them on social media, because audio won't just work. And I tell people, sometimes you just have to do it on video, because yes, people can grow with just audio, and that's how podcast was at first. But sometimes people want to see, what does a podcaster looks like if they're not like on their cover, and how they are. Like, can they like show us how they are on camera? Can they show us their like facial expressions and this and that? Like, they want to see, because sometimes you gotta watch something and also hear it than just hear it. And that's why I decided to like move from just audio to both video and audio. And I'm so glad that I did it, because one, even though I still gotta do it, I've been so busy with school, and I have to post clips. I had to delete a clip because it was like out of order. So I have to post the rest of from episode 9 to latest episode, which will probably Friday episode, not today episode. Well, tomorrow's episode, because today is Monday, like I said, and this will be posted on November 7th, so tomorrow. But Friday's episode, I'm editing. I have to edit this, and I have to edit all the other podcast clips to post on TikTok throughout the next 2 to 3 weeks. But it helps. I'll tell you that. I get a lot of views on it, and it helps, and it can bring a lot of traction to your podcast. Yeah, I can't put the link in yet because with TikTok you have to have like a certain amount of followers, and I don't even have 100 followers on my TikTok account. I don't really like posting on TikTok, to be honest, but I don't. So like if you're on TikTok, go search up You Against You by Deja and go follow, okay? So I can start like posting the podcast link and everything and whatnot. But no, it helps and gets views. It get a lot of views. So me just taking his advice on also doing a video, it was a huge risk, to be honest. It helps bring attraction to your podcast, and if you're not doing it, you should start doing it. And put subtitles and edit it how you want to edit, you know, all of that, and just let it do its work. Just know you're still in the beginning process, and you will grow. And social media, especially with TikTok, if you don't use it to promote anything, you should start using it because it does help you promote business. It might take time, but it can help you promote business, YouTube channels. If you're a YouTuber, podcast, whatever it is, it helps you boost that promotion. Now, another reason why I decided to keep it on video because after I think 5 episodes of just doing on video, I was about to switch it only on audio, but I kept it. It's because sometimes, like I said, I am recording on 2 different devices. I'm recording on my computer, which I'm using my dynamic microphone, and I'm also recording on my camera as you see it if you're watching this. So my mic is plugged up onto my laptop and I'm recording on my camera, but like last episode I forgot to press record. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I forgot to press record for the last part for the closing. So when I was editing and I couldn't export it because I couldn't, like, I didn't have that, like, ending part, I was like, okay, let's put this on GarageBand, edit the audio a bit, and then we have it there. So I have another source of having audio if I forgot to press record on my laptop, because I'm used to looking at my camera and I'm not always looking, you know, here and there because I have to keep eye contact. I have a second source of audio, so if I forget to press record on my laptop, I can just put the video into GarageBand, because you can do that. You can put movies into GarageBand and edit it and this and that and use that for my audio for my podcast. So that's why I like using both video and audio to just audio, and I'm so glad that I'm doing how I'm doing it because it helps me if I forget to do something and I have some type of source. But also it is stressful to do both. It's stressful to edit both. I have to edit these today and I gotta post these tomorrow, so I gotta schedule it for tomorrow. But it is hard, but I'm kind of used to it because I'm a content creator and I edit videos on my free time and just for a living. So yeah, but it's still stressful. Now let's go on things I've learned on this journey. I talked about the journey itself, but this is more on going in depth on the things that I learned. So the first thing I learned, and I was talking about this a few minutes ago, is you do not have to wait for later seasons to have guests on your episodes. I feel like a lot of people think, well, I'm a new podcaster, I'm not gonna have guests. And I kind of want to explain it to someone, like, you don't really have to wait until you're used to it. Is when you have a guest, it's actually better, I feel like, because you're having a real conversation with someone. And I want to tell that to someone, but you don't have to wait until you like in season 3 or season 4 or 5 to have guests on your episodes on your podcast. Like, you don't. Just DM them or email them and plan an episode after that. I have gotten a lot of guests for this season, and when I started my podcast, I had a lot of guests for last season too. I just network with people. I network with other small creators who have a voice, who wants to put a voice out there. And I said, if you want to be a guest on my podcast, even on Instagram story, I have a guest form where you can fill out. And if you want to be a guest, if you're a listener, you want to be a guest in next season, which I will talk about in a few. But if you want to be a guest in next season, season 3, I will have the Google form in the show notes. You can fill out, and I will definitely let you know if I like what you're talking about, or whatnot. But I do review each Google form, so I don't like let everybody in. Like, I review those Google forms and decide, do I think this person should use my platform? Is it the same type of things that, is my ideas the same as their ideas? And they are. And sometimes I got to reschedule to do the guest episodes because I lost the audio, which has happened. Zoom, and technology is going to be technology, or just to fit in someone's schedule. So I got an email to people to know if we're still doing it before the season ends. But no, I didn't wait for guests. I wanted guests on my podcast. I did not want to wait until I was in other seasons to have guests on my podcast, and I'm so damn glad that I started having guests on my podcast in season 1 than having it now in season 2, because I love when I do guest episodes. Not gonna lie, because I'm having a conversation with someone, plus it's like we're networking, and networking is good. Now, like I was saying, you gotta know like what equipment works best, and studying what you have first. Now, that's something that I have, learned. So when I first started my podcast, I used my handy dandy voice memo on my phone, and then I used this like microphone that was like for the phone, but like it was like recording videos on your phone. You have like a actually plugged in microphone, and I used that. It had like the little fuzzy thing on it, and I use that for my mic, and I use my phone to record my podcast, and then I would distribute through my phone on the Anchor app. So I used what I had. You do not need the, how can I say, you don't need to spend thousands, hundreds and thousands of dollars on podcast equipment. I like started with a mic that I probably got up like for $20 off of Amazon, and my phone, and a free app that comes with every phone, the voice memo. So, and I would title it, I would edit it, and all of that. That's what I use. Now, learning what equipment works best for you. So when I switched from a little mic that doesn't have a lot of good audio from the mic that I use now, I did a lot of research on what type of mics to use, and I did a lot of research on TikTok. And that is when I was like, I want to give me a dynamic microphone. This is what this is. So if you're like watching this on YouTube, this is a dynamic microphone, okay? A dynamic microphone. And I used it. I wanted to use it, and I found the cheapest one I saved and I got the cheapest one off of Amazon. I do not like how the stand is short. When I first started this, I didn't know it had like this little stand. I thought it was shorter, but no. I want to get a stand for it so it can actually like be here and on the side, and I can just talk to it and I don't have to worry about holding it, because sometimes holding a microphone you can hear like through the sound just the tapping and everything, and I don't like that. But I probably spent like $50 on this. Yeah, $50. So not that bad. Plus, it had a lot of good reviews, and a lot of people did recommend a dynamic microphone than like a Blue Yeti. And I was planning to get a Blue Yeti microphone, but they're very expensive. Like, they're expensive as hell. So I didn't get one. Plus, as well, I got like this little, I forgot what these are called, but you can't see it. But it's like a box and you have to plug everything in. So I got the mic first, and then I had to get the little like audio thing. I forgot what they're called. And that was actually almost $100, which is freaking crazy. But I was like, I'm doing this for real. And I'm gonna say this, try it out. Use your phone and try it out. And I tell people that. I said, don't invest in a microphone yet. You want to try it out. Start with the equipment that you have. And I told the person who wanted to start a podcast, who was starting a podcast, I was like, you want to start with your phone first? But she was like, but I want the quality to be good. I was like, you want to try with your phone first, because what if you don't like it? Like, when people start YouTube and they want to buy a camera right away, and I was like this, but I always wanted to do a YouTube channel ever since like middle school, when I had American Girl dolls at the age of like 14, 15 years old. Yes. No, from like 11 to like before into high school. So yeah, from 11 to like 14, the summer of me going to ninth grade. But I always wanted to start a YouTube channel. I have like a American Girl doll YouTube channel that is now deleted, but I always wanted to start a YouTube channel. So when I got fired from my job, I used my paycheck to buy a camera. So that is something that I always knew to do, but now everyone gets so discouraged because of the numbers. They focus on the numbers, and I tell you, don't focus on the numbers. So like when people ask me, what camera should I use to start a YouTube channel? Use your phone. What should I use to record my podcast episode? Do I need a mic? No, you can even use the mic on your headphones, on your AirPods, and use that, and use your phone to start, because you never know what it will take you. It's different for everyone. Everyone's journey is different, and a lot of people focus on, a lot of people are not listening to it. So I'm gonna quit. No, just do it because you want to do it. That's why you started it. Not because you got other people's opinion. It's because you started it. Like, I would have YouTube video ideas that I want to do, but I also want to see if my followers will watch it. So yeah, I do polls, and you can do that just to get a second opinion, because sometimes in life you need a second opinion. But if you really want to do it, just start what you have first and then invest into a mic. Or if you want to become a YouTuber, start with your phone. Your back camera, your back camera on your phone is so good. Start with that and then invest with a camera. The Canon camera is not expensive, like as a first camera, but shoot, it's still expensive, if you know what I mean. And this mic is not really expensive. Like I said, I didn't pay, like I paid like almost $50, but it is something that I always did, because I purchased a microphone going into season 2 when I was almost done with season 1, and I started what I have. So you want to start what you have, because you never know if you're going to like it or not. So just know that. And if you're a new podcaster, don't hesitate to have guests on your podcast when you into later seasons. Start having guests on your podcast now, because what I learned too, I should have said this now, but I was like, I'm going to talk about this in a couple of points. Having a guest on your podcast can also help you have exposures to your podcast. I'm not going to lie, having podcasts, like having guests on my podcast, having guests on my podcast episodes have been doing good than just solo episodes. So it helps bring exposure to your podcast, and a lot of people don't realize that. If you start having guests on your podcast early, then waiting, it can help grow your podcast. It can help bring exposure to your podcast than just social media. Because like I said, social media, it can be a hit and miss. But if you have guests on your podcast, it can help bring exposure because their followers, their supporters are going to listen to you as well. Not just them. They're going to listen to y'all. And it's your podcast. And if they like that, they're going to listen to the other episodes that you did by yourself on your podcast. And it just helps exposure for your podcast. So if you're a new podcaster and you don't have guests, do it. As a new podcaster as well, do podcast swaps. That's what I started doing this season, was podcast swaps, and I'm continued to do that in season 3 and season 4 and season 5. But it really also helps bring exposures as well to not just your podcast but the other podcasts, so you're helping each other grow. So if you do a podcast swap on your podcast, do it. It helps bring exposures for both podcasts. And if you want a guest on your podcast but you're so scared and you just want to wait for later seasons, do it now than later, because it helps bring exposure to your podcast now. Just jump in the pool. Like, just do it. Like, just do it. I'm so sorry. I'm like looking now. As talked about, yeah, doing podcast swaps, networking with other podcasters. And like I said, I did a podcast swap, my first podcast swap with Simply Love Podcast. Yeah, Simple Love Podcast. Hold up. Let me get the right podcast name because I don't want to butcher it. But it was like Simply Simple Self-Love Podcast. So that's the first podcast swap I did. I was actually supposed to do another podcast swap before that, but like I said, Zoom deleted it. And I'm doing another podcast swap with Glow Up Syndrome. I already did the episode for her podcast, so I will have my podcast swap with Glow Up Syndrome in the show notes, and Simple Self-Love podcast, both of the episodes from my podcast and her podcast in the show notes as well. And when I do the finished podcast swap with Glow Up Syndrome, of course y'all will know it'd be in December before the season ends. But no, do podcast swaps if you're a new podcaster. Like I said, it helps bring exposure for both podcasts. And if you're a new podcaster, have guests now, don't wait, because it helps bring exposure to your podcast. You want to do your podcast good than bad. And also, I do want to do more podcast swaps in the future. So I already have some podcasts that I'm going to ask and probably DM because it's just better. But yeah, so if you're a new podcaster, you should definitely, when another podcaster say like, hey, you want to do a podcast swap, just do it, because you never know what it can bring to your podcast. Now, let's talk about the future things that I want for this podcast. Like I said, I want a lot of things for this podcast. I don't want to just do podcast episodes and share the clips for the podcast on social media. I want to grow my community. I want to grow the podcast social media, this and that. This is still just the beginning. So I have a whole list of the things that I want to do for You Against You podcast. So let's just get onto that, besties. Okay, besties, so I'm back. Before I had to stop my camera, before it stopped itself, we was talking about the future things of You Against You podcast. So you should definitely want to listen to this episode because a lot of good things are happening. I can feel it. Now, next year, 2024, if you have seen a poll, I asked if I did a challenge, would you do it? And y'all agreed with yes. So I am planning to do a challenge some point when I start season 3. No, so my first episode of season 3, I will start talking about it more and how it's going to be. And season 3 will probably happen the second week of January. So I'll still be out of school, so that's good. But I'm planning to start a level up challenge next year so we can help each other and help improve ourselves and make new friends. So more info about that challenge, because I'm working on it, will happen probably. Y'all will get a a feel about it next month when I make a post on the podcast Instagram. But when that happens, y'all will know exactly what's gonna happen, where you can join, how to join, and whatnot. But it would be through the Geneva group chat for one, and you can also reflect on yourself. Like I said, someone said they reflected on their self by just listening to this podcast. So it would be a good opportunity to do new year, new me, plus networking with other people. So stay tuned for the Instagram post when I'm done setting this whole challenge up. And if you're not added to the Geneva group chat, you will probably get to know first. But if you want to add yourself, the link is always in the show notes. Also, it's always in the bio in the Instagram, so you should always want to add yourself once, but it's always there is what I'm trying to say. So if you want to add yourself to the genuine group chat. But I'm planning to do a level up challenge for 6 months. I was planning to do it for a year first, but I decided to do it 6 months. And then for the latest 6 months, I would do a new challenge. So it would be 2 challenges that I would be doing next year. And yeah, it's the level up to get the new year started. But to finish the year, it will also be a level up challenge. So I might just do it 12 years. Not 12 years, 12 months. I don't know yet. We're gonna see. I'm still planning it, but y'all will get more info about it next month in December, probably the first week of December, so stay tuned for that. Now, another future thing that I want to have for my podcast. Now, before I talk about this, so the reason why I'm doing the challenge, like I said, because I feel like it can bring a lot to my podcast. So when I post this on my podcast, I want to post clips of me doing it on the podcast TikTok and podcast Instagram. So when I do that, it brings some type of attention to my podcast. It also can help my podcast grow, so that's why I decided to do this as well, and I think it will, and I'm just so happy. So stay tuned for the Instagram post, stay tuned for the TikTok post of the level up challenge for next year. So yeah, it won't start like the first week of January though, like I said, because I feel like that's us just getting used and then just of, oh, it's a new year, and us, still eating this and that from Christmas and whatnot. So that's why I said it'd probably be the second week of January. Now, another thing I want to happen in the future, I don't know when, some of these things that I want to happen for the future of You Against You podcast is not next year, 2024. It's going to probably happen in 2 years. It's probably going to happen in 3 years. But another thing that I would love to happen in the future is have a podcast studio. Now, it's very hard to find like a studio space that I can have permanently where I live, so I'm trying to find like office space to rent out, maybe after I get my license and like save up to have it. But I would love to have a podcast studio with chairs, like a big table with mics and chairs, so when guests come, I can actually have them come, be a real life in person interview than having it through Zoom. And also it's just better with just noise in the background. I don't have to worry about that, and I just want it. That is my vision. I have like a whole Pinterest board of podcast studio ideas. So that is something that I want in the next 3 to 4 years, is a podcast studio for You Against You podcast, where I can leave and go and probably get some coffee and whatnot and make it my own, than having it in my room, because like I said, you gotta start with what you have, and a lot of people start with their room. So if you have the money, invest in a studio if you want to. If you want to wait just to see if you like doing a podcast and see, then you do you. But that's what I want to happen in the next 3 to 4 years, is to have a podcast studio. Maybe in the next 3 to 4 years I can reflect to the first year episode of You Against You podcast anniversary. I said I want a podcast studio in the next 3 to 4 years, and this is the third year of You Against You podcast, and look, I have a studio. So like, I can reflect back, but yeah, I want a studio for my podcast. Another thing I want to have and to happen to my podcast. And like I said, networking is key. And sometimes you just have to send that DM or email. So which I will be doing in a few days, probably today and probably tomorrow when this episode gets out. But it's to have interviews with my favorite podcasters, the big podcasters. The reason why everyone actually also doing podcasts, because they're popular. So the podcast girlies that everyone listens to, I would want to have an interview with one of my favorite podcasters, and I will probably send an email at one point to do that. And I don't know how would that go. I hope it goes well. I don't know how it goes, but I want to interview some big podcasters, and I'm not going to say in the next couple of seasons. I would love to want it to happen next season. I would want it to happen next season, to interview some of my favorite podcasters, the big podcasters that I like listening to. That is a goal of mine, and I'm going to make that happen. I will make that happen, and you're going to watch that happen, okay? Okay. Now, of course, I would want to also grow the podcast social medias to thousands of followers on both platforms, and also have the podcast to have 1 million downloads, 1,000 downloads, to 1 million, 10 million, so how many downloads. I want to have a lot of downloads, and that is a goal of mine. I don't know when it's going to happen in the future, but I know I want it to happen. Another thing that I want to happen for my podcast is to have a creative team. That is something, if I want to start that next year with other like-minded women to work side by side to help my podcast grow. I don't know yet. I'm still thinking if I want to do it for season 3 or season 4. It is hard. You know, you gotta look at resumes and this and that, but I might want to. And if I do, just look out for this story about that and all of that. But I do want to have a creative team, because sometimes it's very hard to do this like a one-woman thing. So like, we just think of episode ideas. If someone wants to edit, I will send them the clip and they can edit it. But I want to have a creative team, which I have like Zoom meetings. We have a 20 to 30 minute Zoom meeting every day, and talk about each episode. So I don't know when that's gonna happen, but if it happens soon, it will happen soon, and you just have to look for the post about it. So yeah. Now, the next thing I would want to happen for You Against You podcast is having it signed with a big podcast company. So being signed like with a podcast company, if y'all don't know, a lot of people start the podcast solo and then they move it to a company that wants to work with them. So that is something that I want to do. Sometimes the big influencers get emails from these companies, podcast companies, and be like, we want you to make a podcast for us. This is how it go. And they're lucky. But as a small podcaster, maybe in the next 3 to 4 years, like I said, I would want to be signed with a podcast company. Like, yeah, like the big ones, you know? And probably have a Patreon for this podcast and do behind the scenes stuff with them and all that, and just grow this podcast that I know it can be. Another thing is, hold on, the last thing that I want to happen for You Against You podcast is have partnerships. So, or just do some type of advertisement for any company. I don't care if it's small businesses or big businesses, but just like a partnership with people and brands. So if you're a small business and you want to do a partnership with me for You Against You podcast, you can DM me. No, actually don't DM me. I will have my personal email in the show notes that you can email me. So if you're a small business and you want a partnership, let's do it. Let's do it now. Let's do that now, yeah, for season 2. Let's do that now. So if you're a small business and you want your podcast to, not your podcast, but your brand to be exposed, you can email me and we can get something set up and all of that. But that is something I want to do. I don't want to just do it with big brands, because as a small content creator, it is hard to do it with just big brands. So like if you're a small business, you should definitely email me. That will be in the show notes. And yeah. Or I will have the podcast Instagram, not Instagram, podcast email as well. So you can email either or, and we can just start and do it. Let's be a dream team. Now, let's talk about season 3. So I have thought about what season 3 is going to be about. Have I thought about episodes? Heck no. But I will actually starting this week, so that's a good thing. But I feel like season 3 whew, will be a lot. Good things. We are moving from this healing girl era to, drum roll please, romanticizing your life. Now, that is what season 3 is going to be about. It's all about romanticizing life and to have a positive aspect of life, especially how the world is so dark, I feel like. So that's what season 3 is going to be about. It's about romanticizing life. That's the topic. So yeah, so now you know what season 3 will be about. When will I start it? Like I said, I will probably start it when I start the challenge. So the second week of January. I want to start recording though at least 3 episodes around after Christmas and before New Year's. But yeah, I gotta plan first, and then when I plan, I will pre-record the episode and have that ready for you guys for whenever it's gonna launch. So I don't know exactly when, if it's going to be the second week of January or the third week of January. You just gotta stay tuned on the posts on my personal and podcast Instagram. But yeah, it will be some point in January, and it's going to be all about romanticizing your life and just living life how you want to and viewing life in a whole another aspect. Now, before we close down, let's talk about what type of episodes we'll be talking about in season 3 before I do my closing and my thanks again. But I feel like with the episodes for season 3, I want to get a guests on how they view their life, how they live their life, their morning routines, their night routines. What is their go-to morning routine? How does that look like? I want to talk about, school, college, and how to romanticize that. That is something I have done, I'm not gonna lie. But stay tuned for season 3 because it's going to be something. And I think for the cover art, I might not take a picture. I might just do something cute and simple and make it all on Canva, because sometimes image than just you can be the the art of what season that season will be about. And with this season 2 cover, I did like a tulip and I snipped it because I feel like with flowers, it's you healing yourself, and when you get flowers it can heal your inner you. Like I got 2 vases with roses in it. I'm looking at it right now. Like I have a vase with pink roses right now on my dresser, and then on my desk I have red roses. And flowers symbolize healing for me. for some reason when they're live and bright. So that's why I do like the fake tulip thingy and just pretend I was like, smelling it and all that. And I think with season 3, the cover art, I want to do something with just with Canva, because sometimes taking pictures and you have so much commotion, it can be hard. So something cute but also simple. But yeah, like I said, I will be doing merch next year for this 2-year anniversary of You Against You podcast, so stay tuned for that next year around this time. And next season is all about romanticizing life and how to view your life in a whole nother aspect. And let's just go to the final part of today's episode. Now, like I said, thanks again, besties, for just supporting me with this podcast. I never thought I would continue. I never thought I will do season 2. And I'm talking about season 3. Like, I'm talking about season 3 right now. I just finished talking about season 3. And we're in season 2, almost done with season 2. And I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for just supporting me. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I would never be here if it wasn't for you guys. So give yourself an applause. And I want to say this is a journey that I'm happy that we can share. So that is something I also want to say. But I'm happy. And again, you can go follow You Against You podcast Instagram at You Against You by Deja. That is the same username for the TikTok, which will be in the show notes down below. You can follow my personal Instagram at Deja DAJAH _ Nicole NICOLE _ which will also be available in the show notes. Go add yourself to the Geneva group chat if you want to network and make friends and just help each other grow. That link is always in the show notes as well, and also in the podcast bio. So yeah. Like I said, stay tuned for the challenge, which will be announced next month. So you want to look for that post some point in the beginning, probably the 1st or the 2nd week of December. So yeah. It's like still the beginning of November, so I still have time to think about it and know exactly how long I want it. I don't know if I want it 6 months, maybe I'm gonna do a month, 12 months of a year. So a yearly challenge, and just stay tuned for the post to know what to do, how to join, this and that, and all that. So stay tuned for that. And also, if you want to save your dry lips in this cold fall weather, and also the next season, which is winter, you should go buy your lip gloss from yours truly, Deja Nicole Beauty. And we are on Etsy at the moment. I'm still working on my website because I want something to pop, make my website pop. So I'm still working on that, but that will also be in the show notes. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave a rating and review. If you're listening to this on Spotify, don't forget to leave a rating. And if you're listening to this / watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, besties. I love you guys. Thank you. This is just the beginning still. We have hit 1 year of You Against You podcast, and there are more episodes to come. And I can't wait what the next year will bring us for You Against You podcast, because yeah, what the 2nd anniversary will bring this. I don't know how this podcast will be in the next 365 days, but I'm so happy that we are in this journey together, and I love you guys, and I'll see you on the next episode that will be out on Friday. So stay tuned for that, and remember, it will always be you against you no matter what, and to always go after your goals, because at the end of the day, you can only make them happen, nobody else. And I love you guys, and I see y'all in Friday's episode. Bye guys.